down here at BQ Press. What do you got there, Thaddeus? Hold up that book there so they know what we've been doing at BQ Press.
Yes, I got you there.
Now, if you look on the back of that book, up at the very top, there's some interesting text there.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
Hey, so Thaddeus and Tonja, welcome to BQ Sunday morning. And Thaddeus, where that came from and that this book came from, Thaddeus was with us on election night, watching the whole damn world fall into an oh my God moment. And he said something that stuck with me really strong. Would you mind reading what you wrote?
I wrote, what is the outcome that hurts the most people, reverts the most privileges, causes the greatest harm to the greatest number, undermines the opportunity for peoples of color, minorities, the LGBTQIA communities, and ensures that for another 30 years, laws will favor those with money, power, and influence? The election of President Trump. Now, hold on. Let me preface that. That was written in 2016. That was before he became president. The night before he was elected, I wrote an essay called The End of the World. And in that essay, I quoted that because part of the problem I had was I knew Donald Trump from New York. As a New Yorker, I knew Donald Trump. I knew what a terrible individual he was. I knew how shady he was. I knew how there was nothing behind him as an individual. But I could see a person like him getting power and influence and maybe destroying the world. And so far, he's been doing great. Anyway.
And that reminds me, did you see the Elon Musk quotes that are going around about empathy?
Yes, the delicious Nietzschean perspective of empathy bad. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
no, dude. Empathy bad if you're you, if you're a sociopath, if you're crazy. Empathy bad. But for the rest of us, empathy good. That's how we've managed to keep the world from going to war for the last 40 years. But that's just me. I could be wrong.
Well, I am going to say it is a pleasure to have both of you guys here today. Now, I'm going to shut up because I didn't ask Thaddeus, and then Thaddeus asking Tonja, so you could watch me stand here and go blah, 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 blah. So, Thaddeus, tell me what's up.
I am here today with Tonja K. Johnson. And the reason I invited her, thank you for inviting me since I'm a guest host. So I'm hosting, but normally I sit on the other side of the table. Normally I've been on this show now probably 3, 4, 5 times now. Yeah. And when they asked me to host, I was like, sure. And then I said, well, who would I interview? And then I said, oh, I know. I'll interview someone I just worked with a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I forget how long ago, a couple of weeks. And I decided that it would be Tonja because Tonja has been blowing up. She's been working it. She is writing. She is creating. She is creating books. She is rallying writers. And let me assure you, as a rallier of writers, I know how challenging that is. So I thought, why not take a person who I admire, someone I've watched work and grow and produce quality material, and give her a chance to show up and talk to all you wonderful folks here at BQ Press. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Tonja. And Tonja, you should tell us about yourself in glowing praise. Always shine your light on us. Let us know how awesome you are. Go for it.
Thank you, Thaddeus. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to get up here and share space with you. I've watched the show several times. I think you guys have great energy. I love the conversations. I love the protest and how honest and open we are about the conversations and what's happening with the world and how we want to change it and how we want to change ourselves within it as well. So I appreciate being able to be here. I write Black speculative fiction. That means science fiction, fantasy, magical realism, horror, and a mixture of all those things together as well. I recently won the 2024 Minnesota BIPOC Emerging Writer Award for fiction. I've been published in several notable literary magazines, Blue Earth Review, FIYAH Lit Magazine, like my dream. And I'm just happy to be able to do what I love and and share my words with people.
You've been busy. I mean, I knew you were doing some of this stuff, but you've been busy.
Mhm.
Well, quite right. We're moving right along now, madam. Uh, I don't know how many people know your origin when you started doing writing. I mean, I only started following you maybe 5 years. How long has it been? 5 years?
Oh, I think more than 5.
Five? More than five?
I
God, I
think
am
it's
getting
a
old.
while
Okay, so
more.
5+ years. We're going to go ahead and say 5+ years
Yeah.
that I've been watching your work and watching you write. And we talk from time to time. We talk about books and stories. But this last event that we did,
Mhm.
I knew more about you from the last event than I had gathered over all that other time. So now here's a chance for you to share your origin story. Where does your radioactive superpower come from? How did you
Oh,
become a writer? What did you decide that said I will write forever and ever? Amen. What was that moment?
it would be more of a villain origin story.
Uh-oh. Well, villains gotta have jobs too. I
Uh,
mean, heroes need people to chase, right? So go for it.
yeah, in spite of, so I grew up really awkward, really quiet, really shy, and struggling with childhood traumas and not really knowing how to open up to people. And in third grade, my racist elementary school teacher assigned a project that changed my life, and it was to write a story. And in that story, I was able to become the person that was in control of my world for the first time. And that feeling of being able to create something and see it flourish in the ways that I wanted to see the world flourish stuck with me. So ever since then, I loved writing. But truly, honestly, when I decided I wanted to do this thing was, I think I was in junior high. I got grounded for sneaking out of the house to go sit on at the edge of the cul-de-sac with my friends under the streetlight. And my mom caught me. I got dragged inside, and my dad took my TV, he took the radio. And I was like, I don't care about that stuff. I got my books. And so I was reading and enjoying myself. And my dad peeked in on me and he saw that I was happy, thriving. And he's like, nah, the books got to go. So all of my
Oh
books,
no.
all of them. And then I just sat there in that room like, what can I do? What can I do? What could I possibly do? And then I started to write and I really never stopped. So from a young age, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I knew that this is what I love to do and this was my passion. So honestly, hard times have shown me that this is something I can keep coming back to time and time again.
So when denied the opportunity to watch TV and read books and do
Mhm.
anything, you decided, I'll just make something. I'll make something. You can't take
Gotta
away
do
my ability to make stuff. And that's actually a cool story. It's not even a villain story. That's just like, I'm going to do it anyway. I remember
it.
that first grounding. I remember it deeply. I was grounded, told I couldn't do anything, go anywhere, be anywhere. My parents are like, we're taking all your stuff. You can take
Mhm.
my books, though. My mom was like, if all you can do is read, then that's all you're going to do. And so I became an encyclopedia because basically I was grounded that whole summer.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it was a bad year. I had a bad year, and I spent all summer in my room with my books, and I hardly noticed the passing of the days, except for in New York, the summer is just unbearable. So that being hot in that room, that was the one thing that made it a problem. But other than that, I was trapped with books. I couldn't be in better places than
Mm,
having access to everything I ever wanted to read. So it was cool for me. Now you
awesome.
said that you do speculative fiction with a black twist. I take it. You
Yeah.
prefer that
Yeah.
over just blowing up the world or robot civilizations or any of that stuff. I mean, and I'm not judging because I love to blow up the world, but
Exactly.
I want to know how what's your focus on when you start working on your stories? How do you decide where your stories take place or when your stories take place?
Mm. To start a story, I usually ask myself what conversations I want to have with the audience, with society, and with myself. So once I pick that topic, say it's Black feminism, say it's environmental justice, then I will develop a character whose world is shaped by these conflicts. So then once the character is born, then the world is usually shaped around them. So it always starts with a conversation and what I want to talk to people about and what I want them to be left with once they come away from my story, that bit of information that gnaws and gnaws and gnaws in the back of their mind that they can't quite forget. I don't want you to have a quick dip into my story and forget. I want you to think about those themes and these questions because they're constantly around us, and we don't have the luxury to sit back and watch the world burn. We need to take action. And if my protest comes in the form of fiction, so be it. I'm just going to make sure I make my stand regardless of the medium.
So my bringing marshmallows, not enough.
Marshmallows, hey, I mean, it has to burn to be reborn, right?
Right. I
So,
mean, if we're gonna watch the world burn, we should have marshmallows. We should have s'mores. We should be able
exactly.
to really enjoy it. There won't be any
Mhm.
chocolate tomorrow. There won't be any marshmallows tomorrow. So we might as
Mm.
well enjoy them today.
Oh,
So
goodness.
okay, I can dig that. I respect that. Now you write horror because I remember the piece I helped you with was horror and or
Mhm.
magical realistic horror. I mean, how would you just is that two genres or was it just stylishly told horror?
It was an amalgamation of things. I guess, yeah, it has an element of horror. So the piece we're talking about is Beneath the Midnight Tide, which
Yes.
was published in FIYAH Literary Magazine, issue number 33. Um, it definitely has the element of horror. It has the magical realism. Um, it has the historical element as well, in a real Black town that has endured and suffered a lot of catastrophe at at the hands of white terrorism. So I wanted to bring this place to life in a magical way, but also still keeping it entrenched in that darkness that lingers there, and that is Oscarville. Um, but yeah, so I definitely think it is a horror story. Um, it doesn't have a happy ending, but
No,
it
not.
is a nuanced ending where you can take many meanings from it as well. So um, definitely horror. I come back to horror quite a bit in my work.
I noticed that. I noticed that you like horror.
I
I wasn't
do.
sure what does that mean that you like scaring people or you like disturbing people? Is that it? You just like to disturb folks?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I
It's
like to
okay.
disturb people.
It's okay. If you write horror and your horror doesn't disturb people, you are not doing your job. Goal of
Yeah.
horror is to disturb folk, make people go, glad that wasn't me. That's what horror is supposed to do. So you're doing
Yes.
your job.
Thank you. Thank you. I try.
I so so you've been writing now and you got published in Fire. And I know you've been wanting that for a minute.
Oh my
Um,
God,
yeah,
yes.
I know. I know. And I remember when you did it, you were like, "I'm sweet." I was like, "Yeah, she's happy." So
Like,
what happened for you after that? I mean, how did it change you? Did you feel
oh,
like I have arrived. I am no longer just hanging
mm,
out as a writer. I have arrived. Someone sees my work and I feel great. I mean, what was
what
did
was
it
the
have a
feeling?
net effect on your creativity? Did you feel more inspired, less inspired, or just like, hey, I always knew I was great. Now other people know I'm great. This is great.
I wish that good feeling could linger for me a while. When I initially got the email, I was elated. I was sitting in my car. I checked through my email. It had only been 12 days since I submitted, and I was like, I probably got another 60 days left to hear back. But for some reason, I kept checking and kept checking and kept checking, and that acceptance came through, and I felt like, oh my God, this is it. This is the sign that I can do this. That I might be good enough for my dream. But that quickly faded. I am a person who I don't know if I'm striving for perfection, but I want to be better than I was 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. So that goalpost is constantly shifting. And so if I rest on the fact that, yes, I was good enough for this publication, my writing is maybe technically good enough now, I'm not going to continue to grow and seek more information and more knowledge and better myself. So it didn't last very long. I think about a week. I got a good week of jolly feelings, and then I was quickly like, okay, well, I still have things to learn. Let's keep moving, and the pace continues. FIYAH did change my life, and it still has opened up opportunities for me. People that I've never been able to dream of like having conversations with, I've now been able to speak with, and being invited into certain circles now that I would have never dreamed about before. And just being able to have these connections, I think that has been the greatest honor of being published in FIYAH, is being able to now be able to network and socialize with these folks that are in places, higher places, wonderful, amazing places that I dream about being in. So yes, I'm really grateful for FIYAH, for seeing the raw, unpolished talent that I might have, and letting me be a part of their magazine.
She's so humble. Brings a tear to my eye. Feels so good. Don't listen to her. She's really talented. She's really skilled. I read her work. I enjoy her writing. And yes, you know what? You deserve to be able to take a breath and say, I was published in FIYAH, and you shouldn't have to feel any way about it. You can just say, I did it. I feel good. And see that feeling right there? That's the feeling you get to have because you did it.
I
It feels
did do
good.
it.
I remember you writing it, and I remember you struggling over it and having feelings about it, and you had lots of feelings about it.
A lot of feelings. Still a lot of
feelings. It's done, and it feels good. You're allowed to enjoy that. We can savor. Savoring can still happen. You just have to be like, "Ooh, that was nice." I just want to feel that for a minute, because there's always going to be another hill. There's always going to be another thing you got to write. There's always, if you decide to be a writer, you're going to be writing, and it's okay to savor the wins, because goodness knows they don't happen nearly enough. Not nearly enough.
Oh, so,
enjoy it. Feel good with it. Savor it. And now that I'm thinking about it, I know that you. So last week, tell us about the event and why you created that event last week, because I like that, and that was a good thing. I think you should do more of those, as many as you can scrounge up writers to participate. Tell me about it.
I definitely plan on doing more events. And so what happened a couple weeks ago was the Black Speculative Fiction Celebration. And this was an event that I decided needed to happen during Black History Month, because we have so few opportunities to celebrate Black writers. And the current administration is trying their best to erase our voices and make sure that we are not heard. They want to erase our Black brethren, our queer siblings. They want to make sure that we do not have the space to speak. So we need to carve out our own spaces. And if I can make just that little burrow for us to go into and be able to reach people, I will do that 1,000 times over. So that is what the Black Speculative Fiction Celebration was about. It was about celebrating Black authors, Black stories, and our creativity. So we got together with 11 people. We all wrote flash fiction pieces that we read, and we talked about what Black speculative fiction meant to us and what it means historically. And we then published those stories and we gave them out for free, so people can hear our voices, and there is no barrier in being able to hear those stories. So I think it's important to make these spaces, to continue to create them. And that is part of what I think I'm here to do, is create space for Black voices. And I've done that through a few avenues. We have a group called Voices of Color, where we commune and we celebrate each other. And I've created another group called POC Cover Market for Black authors and authors of color who want to find covers specifically that represent them, when it's so hard to find quality covers that have people of color on them, and nobody seems to really care that this is an issue. So we need to make the spaces for ourselves. Yeah,
I'm going to second that. It's very difficult to get a good cover for artists of color, particularly because for some reason the industry doesn't want us to actually produce books at all. I mean, we don't get picked up, we don't get published, we don't get seen. And so it's hard to find artists willing to do art featuring characters of color because there just aren't that many professional artists out there willing to. And I think that's one of the biggest problems a lot of writers have is they want to produce more of their own work. They want to see more of their own work, but the challenges of producing it, the knowledge base, the skill base. I mean, a writer has to know a lot of stuff now. Once upon a time, all you had to do was write. I have a story, I write it down. It's wonderful. I send it to my publisher. Handle that for me. And they handle it and they go, oh, this is wonderful. We're going to put it in a book. And it goes into a book and it's done. And I didn't have to do anything. I don't have to advertise for it. I don't tell people about it. I just wrote it. But now you got to be a social media guru. You've got to be able to analyze your statistics for your social media. You've got to develop your own platform. You've got to be able to have your own social media website, personal website. So you've got to be able to your own stuff. You've got to promote your own work. You've got to curate your own audience. Oh, gee whiz. When do I get to write? Because all that stuff sucks up all your time. So I know that that's a challenge. And so when I found out that you had taken all the stuff and turned it into an EPUB, I was like, oh, she's just going to do too much. Quite right. I like her even more. So you went off to do that. You turned it into an EPUB. And I know I should have had a link so I could have given it to Bob so he could. Matter of fact, I'm sure I have it. Oh, wait a minute. I do have it. See, I used to do a podcast and I had a window where I would keep stuff. So Bob will drop this somewhere and then you guys
can help you find it.
Here we go. As soon as I figure out how to do all that. All right, Bob, here you go. This is the link to If Fists Could Talk on Goodreads. So we gathered those writings together and she EPUB'd them and she put them in a book and now she put them up on Goodreads. And that's a lot of skill. That's in addition to just being a writer. That's a lot of just general skill because most people, they're lucky if they can write it. You know, I wrote a story. It's finished. I'm happy. And they post it somewhere and they're thrilled. But to write it, pub it, put graphics on it, design it, put it up, edit it. I mean, that's a career. I mean, and if you do this more than a few times, you get to, I am an editor and a writer and a creator. And, I make julienne fries too. So, you're doing a lot and it is. And the reason I admire it is because I know what kind of work ethic it takes to do that. It's a crazy amount of work. Having done it now for years, you're doing just fine. But I got a couple of questions for you now that we've got you here.
Okay.
Let's talk about your process. See, like for me, I usually ask a question that nobody ever wants to ask. So, for example, what if politicians were competent? What if they did their jobs?
That's a huge one.
What would it take for politicians to be competent? How would you, what does that world even look like? So the other night I was just sitting and I was like, what would that look like? So I ended up writing a little piece of flash fiction called Commitment, just as an idea. And part of the idea was for me to think that politicians would be competent, you'd have to remove all opportunities to bribe them. As long as they can be bribed, well, then they're going to always do what they've always done because money is power and pretty much that's how our society runs. So commitment, politicians are committed. And the difference between, so you've heard the joke, it says, chickens participate in breakfast, pigs are committed. Yeah, chickens appear for breakfast. Yes, here's an egg, sir, and we're on our way. But a pig, they got to be committed. They're going to be bacon or whatever they're having. They're staying. So in this story, I decided when you become a politician, congressman or up, you are in the job for the rest of your life because the only thing you're going to have is a head. They're going to take your brain, slave it to a quantum computer, and you will be body free. Your family's cared for, everything's handled. You don't ever have to worry about anything. And because of that, the only thing you do Here's what politicians are supposed to do: prepare for the future, make the future better. You can't be bribed because you're never going to get anything. You get nothing. Your family's cared for, and the only thing that the world gets is quality legislation, because that's all you can do now. Yes, it's a very dark tale. I know I decided to go all the way there, but sometimes good speculative fiction should ask horrible, horrible questions. And to me, asking what it takes to have a good government, that's not that horrible. I mean, it should be what we expect from our government. But if we look at our own current government, we appear to have a government that has just lost its mind. We've allowed our allies to get bombed. We're giving information to our enemies. We've told all the people we've been friends with for 45 or 50 or 80 years, hey, you guys just don't matter all that much to me. I'm going to see new people. This hot Russian chick over here, I'm going to go hang out with her. She's got it together. So I wanted to know, what's your process? And that's why I gave you my process, so you can see how I arrived there. But what's your writing process? I'm sure it's probably less bizarre than mine.
Well, sure. The brains and the jar and the bodiless stuff, that's awesome. But no, I haven't gone there. I talked about it briefly, I guess, in one of the previous questions. It was to start with a conversation that I want to have. And it's very similar to what you do. So you take that central idea and you build around it. And I think it's great to start with, because when you're in speculative fiction, it's always about the what if. What if there never was American chattel slavery? What if this world was this way instead of this way? So if you start with those questions, you can truly build something amazing and super creative, like a brain in a jar that, that helps legislate a country. But beyond the question, I've come to the conclusion that I need to outline, or at least be very cognizant of what the structure of the story is going to be. I used to think I was a pantser, so I would just write and write and write and write, and it was so much fun. I would bounce around from scene to scene, like something in the beginning of the book, something at the end of the book, and just go on pure vibes. Vibes are not enough, at least for me.
They aren't enough for anybody. You never get a story out of them if it's just vibes.
Some people, they have the kind of brain power that can conceptualize story in these really abstract ways. My brain can't. I need order. I need sequence. So once I started to outline, I saw my craft skill, picking up in a way that it hadn't when I was so resistant to outlining and plotting. Actually, this book that I wanted to come out this year. I don't know if you guys can see it. How big?
I can see it. No, we can see it.
This was something I wrote when I was pantsing, and I had a general outline of like, okay, I want these things to happen, but they didn't follow a beat system. And once I was done, I had over 250,000 words of mess, just complete mess. Like, I mean, the individual scenes are fun, but they don't connect. They don't have a general heart thread. And so now I have to deconstruct, create an outline and a system for which these scenes fit together, scrap some, rewrite some. And so this learning that I need to be very, very aware of what the story is supposed to be doing from start to finish was a hard lesson to learn. It was an over 600-page lesson to learn. So don't be like me. Outline, please. You'll cry less at night because of me.
So I can't argue with that, because I know, well, see, pantsing, not really my thing in general. Although when I started doing flash fiction, I found that you can pants flash fiction because it's short. It's like, I just have to get one really good idea. Just border one really good idea. And my rule has always been start as close to the end of that story as possible. So I'm not writing any of that other fluff in the front. This is the end. I got the end right here. and now I got enough room to write a story, and I only have 750 words. And people say, you can't write a story in 750 words. I'm like, you lying.
You can.
I can do it. You can do it in 500 words. I learned you can do it in 250 words. I learned you can do it with 100 words. It is possible to tell stories. I've done it with 50 words. I had there was a 50-word horror contest that was done a few years back. And they said, can you write a horror story in 50 words? The answer is yes, you can. Takes some work, but I didn't do it just once. I did it 10 times to prove it could be done. And depending on the genre, some genres lend themselves to that because there's not a lot of extra window dressing. The genre relies on a feeling. So like if you're writing cosmic horror, you just have to make sure the feeling of I'm going to die and there's no escaping it. As long as that feeling is really woven into the tale, you don't need more than 50 words. And so you can do this. And I like doing that. I like playing with little pieces of writing because there are several writers. Micro SF is a guy who writes online, and he writes, his stories are the length of a tweet, 140 characters, and they're good. He has the right idea for finding a pivot point. And really what he does is he's basically taking the idea of a story and turning it into a sentence or two. And if you turn around and were to write more of that, take his seed and like use it as a seed to write another story, you'd make something great. And so that's the essence of good flash fiction, which is being able to take an idea, distill it down, make 3 points, and go, beginning, middle, end. And basically, again, the beginning starts as close to the end as possible. It's an art form, but you can pants those. You do not have to put a whole lot of outlining in those. Yes. But if you want to write anything longer than, let's say, 30,000 words, you need an outline. Just because it's so easy to get lost. You'd be like, I'm having a good time. I'm writing this story. It feels good. I'm going out there. It's exciting. This new thing is happening, and I'm excited. And oh my God, I've reached 30,000 words. What happened? Where's the story? The story got lost in the enthusiasm of having the words come together, and it felt good. So you either have to keep writing, or you just keep making cool scenes, and then 200,000 words later, you're like, yes, I'm finished. But what did I write? So
exactly.
I'm a big believer in outline. Snowflake method. If you haven't used the snowflake method, learn it. It is good. It is clean. Be able to write a log line. Be able to organize your thought process. These things matter. And people say, well, if you write an outline, your story's so dull. I'm like, no. Because if you're writing and it gets good, let's say you're writing a scene and you got an outline and it's good to you, but suddenly you get a better idea. I go with that better idea. And when I'm done, I go back and, I'll write the better idea. Of course, always. Take the better idea, pick it up, put it into my story, then go back to my outline and go, this was a better idea. So we're going to do this. And all these other things that I just changed, because now I've made a whole bunch of changes later in the story, I need to tweak those. And so I make a note and remember that I've changed that. And then I keep going.
Exactly. Right. I would even go further for people who are just trying to get their feet wet in writing, that you need that structure so you don't get lost. I've helped so many people who are new in their journey discover that there's a lot of fundamental flaws in their short fiction, even at the 5,000 word level, 7,000 word level, because they don't understand the flow of a story yet. Even if you read, you may not be reading for understanding and deeper learning into how a story weaves itself together. You have to have stakes. You have to have a character with a problem, a character with some flawed view of the world and how that shapes them and how they need to be changed at the end of the story. So without change, without all those things that make a story what it is, it's going to get lost and it's going to be hard to redo. You're going to have to probably scrap and start over. But if you just start off learning a structure, you can then forego it because then you'll understand it, internalize it, and then you can create stories because you know structure so well that you might not need to plot out every single beat because you'll know it inherently, and then your stories will be better and stronger for it. So I think, yes, The snowflake method is great. I love Save the Cat, super easy. Has a lot of instruction on how to navigate that system. And if you want to outline, I think those are two really great places to start.
All right. I like that. Now we're going to get to that question that everybody dreads. So we're
What
going to
is
go ahead and get it out the way.
it?
Who influenced you to write? I mean, yes, you were trapped in your room alone in a cold, cruel world, and you created your first stories. But after that, you also had other influences. Who are those influences, and why do they matter?
Oh, there's so many. First, I want to thank my dad for really, really being open in the literature he let me consume in my early years, because it broadened my scope of what stories could be. And if I had just stuck to um, things that he deemed were safe or appropriate, then I don't think I would have had the type of imagination that I do today. So I think my dad is a great influence for me. He's always pushed literacy and reading, and because of him, I enjoy stories. So him and Octavia E. Butler, N.K. Jemisin. There's so many. I will have to say most likely, N.K. Jemisin would be the top. She's like my literary goddess, and she sits up on a pedestal. And so, if I could write just one story that impacted me the way that the fifth season did, I would be a happy writer. She restructured my brain on how speculative fiction should be, or what even the definition of it is, and how you can really intertwine science fiction, fantasy, horror, all these other elements, and create something that feels fresh in a genre that just keeps churning and churning the same ideas over and over again. And to read her work and and to be surprised and shocked and in tears and enraged by the events of what's happening, I truly would love to be able to be that type of writer. And it takes immense skill and dedication and numerous drafts and eyes on your work. So it doesn't happen in a bubble. And that's why I think us forming these collective groups and these communities in which we can rely on each other and share ideas and be in conversation about what literature is and what stories are is so important, because as a writer, you're never going to have all the answers by yourself. It doesn't matter how many books you read, how many YouTube videos you watch, however many courses, you need others to bounce those ideas back and forth on. You need beta readers, you need editors, you need proofreaders, you need readers in general, because what's the point of the book if you're not going to give it out to others? So, yes, to get lost, my answer, N.K. Jemisin is my top influence currently.
Nothing wrong with that. Fine writer, great multi-genre feel. She has a great way of weaving a variety of genres together. They feel
Yes.
seamless. They don't feel strange. It's a gift, and she's got it. So I long for it. Octavia Butler is one of my personal favorites. I think when I first started writing, seriously writing, not just like, oh, I'm going to do this for class because I need an A, and I'm going to do this in class, and it's great. And I would get A's, but I didn't care about it because it was just a writing course. And then I think somewhere about halfway through my probably second year when I was in college, I decided I could be good at this, but I hate following instructions. So I didn't write any of the things the teacher told us to write. I wrote whatever I wanted to. So here was the theme, and then I write something else speculatively based on that theme. And then she'd go, I cannot give you an A for this. I said, why? She says, because this isn't what I told you to write. I said, but is it good? She goes, yes, it is good, but it is not what I told you to write. So you can only get an A minus.
Okay.
And that's what I got for everything I ever wrote in that class. Only because I never wrote what she told me to write. But now, to be fair to her, she ends up becoming one of my greatest reading fans. She ends up writing and working with me and editing my first book.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was funny. She made fun of me for years because she's like, "You were a perfect student. You just didn't do what you were told. You did what we did in class. You were great, but when it came time to do the work, you just did what you wanted to, and I can't reward that." But eventually, when it came time for me to start writing, she was like, you said you wanted to write a book, and I think I want to read your book. So I wrote it and I submitted it to her, and she edited it, and she was as brutal as she ever was. And God bless her. Jan Wall, best thing Texas ever produced. She, she savagely tore it apart, but when she was done, it was brilliant. And I realized the power of a good editor. Never, ever believe that you can't get help from an editor. If their editor's doing their job, they're making your book better because they're not in love with it. You're in love with it. You're like, "Oh, I love you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." And all your friends are like, "Girl, he ain't no good for you. Put that book down." So an editor comes up and says, let me help you. Let me help you with this. And she goes through it, and she finds those things that you're in love with, and then slashes them and says, "Get that out of here." It's like, okay, he's not right for me. I know. I put him out, and the story gets better. And so she was amazing. She was an amazing reader and an amazing writer. She was also a painter, and she did a bunch of other stuff. She was very talented, a talented woman. So yeah, an editor makes a difference. If you have never thought about it, you have to remember every writer, no matter how good you might think they are, it has an editor standing by to go, "Get that trash out of here." That's what they're for. That's their job. But if you have a good one, man, it makes your story sing, because they see the things that you don't, and they recognize at times when you're too close, when you're like, "Hey, that's a tree. That's all I can see is that tree." And they're like, "Hey, there's other trees out here." "Oh, cool. Look around the tree. We're good." My editor was that woman. She would ask you, "You had a great story there. Too bad you missed the real story." Yeah, she would. She'd be like, "That was a great tale, but you missed something. You missed this whole thing here." And I'm like, "Really?" And then I'd be listening to her, and I'd look at it like, damn, you're right. I told the wrong story. So then I would go back and rewrite it, tell the right story. And then I'd take the other story and be like, "I'll do something with this eventually," and just put it in a box. Believe it or not, I end up coming back to a lot of those. They come back to you. If you write long enough, everything you write comes back to you, and you come back to it and go, "This wasn't a bad idea, but I could make it better." And I find myself grabbing old tales and, polishing them up and going, "Yeah, this could be good," and give it to my editor. And she's like, "Didn't we do this already?" "Yes, we did, but it's better now." And then she'd read it and she goes, "It is better now. Awesome. Let's keep doing that." So edit, get an editor. It makes a difference. Now, I got a question for you. Have you ever got to a point where you were writing something and said, "I never want to write again"?
Not, I never want to write again, but this sucks. Like, I'm tired of it.
Okay.
I've refused to give up. I don't think I've reached that point yet, but there's been plenty of time. I think each piece I write, I get to a point where I hate it. I've looked at it enough times. It's trash. Why even waste my time on this thing? I don't know how anybody will ever like it. Yeah, every single thing I write, I go through that phase. Like once it gets down to the last few end revisions, I'm just done. I'm tired. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. I'm like that right now with a piece that I need to submit. I absolutely hate it, but I gotta try. I gotta submit it and see if it sticks somewhere. So if you hate your pieces, just know it's normal. I don't think there's many of us out there that loves everything that we write. There might be a few. Thaddeus, do you love your stuff? Because
No. Most of what I write, I loathe, and it's always a challenge. Sorry, my cat has decided that this is the moment for her. I must be here. Half the time I love it. The other half the time I loathe it. And ironically, the pieces that I love, most people don't. And the pieces that I loathe, most people do. So it's like if I loathe it, they'll love it. I like, oh, I hate this thing. This is the worst thing I ever wrote. What was I ever thinking? I can't stop writing it, but I finish it and I go, I hate this. I'll never read this again. And other people go, wow, this is amazing. This makes me feel things. I'm like, wait a minute. I just said I hate that piece, but I love it. Now, the pieces I love, the weird, really weird pieces, twisted, time traveling, timey-wimey bending, genre fusing, things that I really enjoy writing. Most people go, what are you smoking? And where can I get some?
Right, because you're so weird.
That just goes to show there is no knowing when you're writing how what you're writing will do for people. So like I said, my favorite stories, most people are like, ick, never want to read that. Things I loathe, they go, why aren't you writing more of this? And I'm like,
because I hate it.
I don't want to write this. But I've written several things that initially I didn't like, but eventually decided to go with. And they turn out pretty good. And some of them actually turn out to be things I enjoy writing more now that I've embraced the horror. And it's gotten good to me. So there's no way to know. You just kind of have to, kind of piecemeal your way through it.
Yeah.
So here's a question. Knowing what you know today, being a writer that you are today you are FIYAH accepted. Knowing that, would you go back? What would you tell yourself?
Yes.
To ensure that you ended up on this path, what would you say to your younger self if you were like, because I know there had to be days when you were writing and working, and you're like, no one's ever gonna read my work. No one loves me. I hate my job. I mean, it had to be those stories. I have them all the time. I have it all the time.
Yeah.
And I have to remember that my future self is going to come to me and say, you're doing okay, dude. Just keep pushing on. Remember 5 years ago when you wrote that and you're like, oh man, why'd you have to bring that up? Why'd you get out? So he's right. My future self is almost always right. Just keep pushing on. What would you tell yourself? What would you do?
Past Tonja, what would I say to her? It's okay. I'll give you a hug. You're loved. It's okay. If you're watching this from the past or the future, I don't know how that would work. If you're watching this somehow, Tonja, just know it's okay. I know you're writing for you and you're writing to create a safe space and to feel whatever emptiness is within you, but read short fiction, read more short fiction, devour that, learn about structure, because those two things have propelled my craft in ways that I never would have thought possible. I've seen myself get better in shorter spans because of short fiction and being able to constantly write and say the end on a piece and see it for its totality and get those rounds of revision in. And because of that, it's made my long form writing just sing in ways that I didn't think was possible. So short fiction, it really is hard to do right. But once you kind of find that rhythm, it helps you become a stronger writer in all facets. So I think that would be my biggest advice. But also keep writing the stuff that you love. Represent yourself in all your ways and all your queerness and all your weirdness. And don't be afraid to show those things to the world, because there's someone out there that's going to accept you and love you and cherish those parts of your story because they're you. And so I think that's what I would say to past Tonja.
You're so good to your past self.
I gotta be.
I'm terrible.
Hard.
He never says anything nice to me. He always comes and looks at me like, dude, what are you doing? Put that down. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the world's hard enough. You got to be a little bit easy on yourself.
Yeah, and I've come to that. My wife is good for that. She'll be like, you know what, just write. Just keep writing. You'll be fine. It'll all work out in the end. And
Exactly. Eventually.
generally she's right.
Yeah. And don't quit. Keep writing. I just saw a comment. No, it's quilting. Never mind. I said quitting.
No, but that's a good point. The point is valid. Tell people.
Don't quit. Because once you stop finishing things, you're gonna fall into a rut of not finishing. So that point of completion is a really special place as a writer when you can say that this thing is done and you've done all the revisions on it and you see the places that you've gone wrong and where you can go right in the next story. So finishing is also incredible and so understated. So finish what you start.
Finishing is an art form.
Mm-hmm.
It is an art all by itself. And a lot of times, I used to write for Quora. I was a writer on Quora. I wrote superhero treatments and pop culture and a bunch of other stuff. Basically, whatever weird question came through, I was going to write about it. But one of the things I learned was that if you didn't finish a piece, you weren't going to. So what I ended up doing was sitting down and saying, however long it took for me to finish this piece, I'm going to finish it. So I might write a piece for 8 hours straight, just start and write all the way through, get to the end, and force myself to finish because finishing mattered. And I learned that if I didn't finish, I wouldn't, because it's something about the moment. You get into the genre, you get into it, and you start working on it, and then suddenly you just fall out, and you've given up. So finishing is an art. It's something that I think we should all be involved in. And are you coming to chat with us, Bob, or tell us to get out? I think Bob doesn't even know he's here with us. So I got a few more minutes. I got one more major question there, Tonja. Tonja, what are you working on right now that's got you thrilled? Tell me about something that you're doing that you cannot live without while I go kill my telephone. I'll be right back.
I have a few. I'll wait for the room to stop. Hi, Bob. You're down there.
I don't think.
Oh, I'm here, but he asked you a question, and I'm not going to interrupt that.
Okay, yeah. So right now I'm working on several things. I have a few short stories in the works, things that are going out on submission, but like really special. I have something that I call Project Space Teeth, and it's queer and it's Black and it's science fiction and it's feminine rage and it's burned down the system. And it's a novella that I think will really impact a lot of people because of what we're going through and how society is shaping itself. It speaks to a lot of things that are going on right now. So that is one of my projects that I'm most excited about. And it's like Dark Tower meets This Is How to Win the Time War. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That sounds like it'll be interesting. I await my early copies.
Yes, of
Yes,
course.
I'm waiting for them. I think that was my 9th question. Yeah. One more question. If you had to have one thing that you want people to read that you think would show people who you were, what piece would that be? What work would that be?
My recent FIYAH publication, The Brief of Midnight Tide. It's in issue 33 of FIYAH. Support Black Speculative Fiction. It's an amazing magazine, Hugo-Award winning, and I'm just honored that my work gets to represent a place that I've wanted to be for so many years. Ever since I saw that burning fist, I knew in my spirit I needed to be in FIYAH. And I'm just really glad that my story is there and it's available for people to read. If you're looking for something for the free 99, If Fists Could Speak is available. And I have a short piece called The Song of the Living. And it's about a young girl and her grandmother, who's disabled, and they live on this secluded farmstead, and the trees run from dead things. So if you are curious about that, you can go ahead and I think check out the link. It might be somewhere in the comments.
I included it. Yeah, it was included. So the link to If This Could Speak, or at least so you could find it. and know what it looks like on
And it's
Goodreads.
short. Yeah, it's short. It's a good introduction of how I write. So I would recommend that as well. And Thaddeus is there, so he has an amazing piece. So
Yes, I have
I
a piece here.
definitely recommend. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good book, and my piece is Dracula's cat Persephone,
So
about
great.
about Dracula, who decided he was no longer going to make any human vampires, ended up making a cat vampire, and ends up being more loyal but also more problematic, and just one of those things. But Bob, you got 5 minutes. Is there something you wanted us to know about? Like, I know you want to promote your book. Here it is again.
Oh,
It's Alternative Liberties.
I mean, my name might be on the cover there, but you were there at inception, you know? And I hope it was good for you. The but the that was a joke, guys.
No,
The
no, we got it. We just want to let it slide on by. Some jokes you just let them go. It's going that way. Let it just keep running. Oh, it's skittering off into the corner.
if I could have made her choke on her coffee, it would have been good.
Funny.
No, I got to tell you, it's if I had anything to promote, it would be the conversation going on between you two. You guys you're touching on so many things. I mean, my little quote of the week comment I made, I knew if I didn't finish, I wouldn't. You know what? You know how many writers, when I run into them and they tell me they've got this great book they're working on. How long you been working on it? 5 years. How far are you in? I got 4 chapters. There's only one word you can say to those people: finish the sumbitch. You know?
Is that one word?
Well, you can use lots, but I mean, that is it. If you're going to write, you got to finish some stuff.
Yeah.
You finish it or put it in a desk drawer and work on something that you are going to finish, because I tell you, and you're talking to a guy who's got a lot of desk drawers. Tonja, what do you got in the desk drawer that you should probably be working on because everybody will love it?
My passion project.
See, wait a minute. I didn't hear a passion project. Tell me more.
Oh, just a second.
It's just
I'm gonna go away so you can have that conversation, and then I'll be back.
No, it's not a whole conversation. Yeah. It's just something that I started a few years. I wrote the first 2 books. Let me not, beat around the bush. I wrote 2 books. They're Black, they're fantasy, they're Game of Thrones-esque, huge world building with a sci-fi component to it. And I realized I wasn't good enough for that book series. I was not a strong enough writer for that series. And so I started trying to improve my craft to be a better writer. And so I shelved it. It's just sitting in my files, gathering dust until I feel like I'm ready. Like I'm really, really ready to tackle that project because it's huge. It's like a huge, huge world. The world building alone, that Bible has like over 500,000 words just of the world building. So the scope of the thing is immense. And I want to make sure that when I sit down to rewrite that story, that I have all the tools in my toolkit that are going to really help make this story sing the way that I want it to. So in the meantime, I'm writing lots of other things to see where I can be, improve my craft, experiment with different story types, and work on one day writing that story. I know you're going to tell me, write that thing right now. I can see it in your face.
No, actually, I was going to say the reason I was hiding my face was because I know a story or two of that similar nature where I wrote them and then decided I wasn't good enough and then put them down, and I feel shame. But I still write, and it's weird because these are things I wanted to write for years, and I wrote them, and then when I was done, I didn't like them. So I ended up turning around and spinning off little stories from those stories. And the more I write the little stories, the more I'm like, I need to just go back and finish the universe. I got all these little things that I've written off it that are really good, that I really enjoy, but I didn't finish the actual universe they came from. So it's like, Oh, shame.
Mm,
I'm hiding
yeah.
my face. But I have to look at it and say that, that happens. I think everybody's got that challenge. I want to
Mm.
be able to get out there and write, and I will do it eventually. I'm confident that I will. But I want to say for you that, oh my goodness, this hour went by way too quick.
It's been an hour? Oh
It's
my
been 59 minutes and 59 seconds. It has been an hour, and it was outstanding.
God.
I'm sorry we couldn't get together to talk this week, but
Yeah.
it ended up being a really good interview, and I knew you'd be a good interview. Cosmic awareness.
Hey,
I knew you'd be
Thank you
great.
for your faith in me. I appreciate it.
You have made me feel good, so I feel like I didn't have to work too hard as a guest host. I just had to sit there and bask in your glory, and it's so
Oh,
nice. So
thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming. We appreciate it.
Thaddeus, you're
Yes, sir.
always a pleasure to have on the show. I mean, and Tonja, it is an incredible opportunity to meet you. Uh,
Thank you.
I could you brought a lot to the show, and I love the humanity here. You know we're all challenged by so many things in the writing. Um, what's in the desk drawer? Getting it done, getting the editing done. Is anybody gonna like what I wrote? It's just amazing. So thank you so very much. And I say this, I hope you both make it back to the show here, uh,
Mm.
because there's this happened here because Tom Whitmore is on a cruise, and we had uh, uh, Cliff said, I'll do it," and I said, wait a second, Cliff, you're on next week, and so I got Cliff on next week. Now it's a good thing we didn't have Cliff come in and fill in this week because he's still working on getting his guests for next week.
Mm.
But I know a great one, Cliff. The but anyway, thank you guys so much. And the world of writing is there's just so much to be said about
Mhm.
it, and you guys said some really good stuff. Anything you want to close with?
I just,
My guest goes first.
yeah, I just want to thank you for having me on and letting me be a guest here. I really appreciate that, and I enjoyed the conversation. I would love to come back one day, hopefully, maybe if you liked me enough.
Oh no, we're gonna have you come back. I'm certain of it.
Yeah.
You're definitely the kind of guest we want. You're ambitious, you're creative, you're fun. I don't see a problem.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, I need some urban context here.
All right.
Cliff, yeah, he says I'm pantsing next week. When I say urban, I don't mean I mean young.
Hey,
Uh, I'm an old man. I know what pantsing somebody means, but I've never heard it used this way.
I think what he means is he is improving for what's going to happen next week. He still doesn't either have a guest or he's still trying to figure out what he's going to do for his guests. So I'm certain he's going to work something out. I mean, that's
It's
that's
gonna
the
be fun
expectation.
anyway.
Cliff has never failed me yet because I mean, you know how much I like Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
The first novel I ever got published, bless his heart, its heart. We uh, we got it back from the publisher after we found out they were having issues, and so we went through, did a little bit of polishing, and you know who offered to do a read on it? Cliff.
Mm.
Yeah, so I sent Cliff the first half of it, and poor Cliff, it's probably uh, what why he's not got it done is because or not got the show lined up is because he is so entranced by the deep empathy and psychology and excellence of the book I sent him.
At least that's what he's telling people.
Oh yeah. Anyway, Thaddeus,
Yes, sir.
thanks for showing up. Thanks for giving me that back cover blurb because the outcome is that which hurts the most people.
Mm.
That's powerful, and I long for a world where that is not our expectation, that is going to be the outcome. We need a better world.
Well, I don't think it's the world. I think it's just the perspective of a few people who are in the right place at the wrong time with too much
Mm.
power and not enough regulation. If I never imagined that our government would rely on the self control of an individual to exist. And
Mm.
that to me is one of the most amazing things about it. But there we go. I'm
Yeah.
gonna plug my book though before I go. Here's my book, The Black Fantastic. That's right. Come see it. Come get it.
All righty.
It's not my book. It's actually a book I appear in. It's edited by Andre Carrington and published by uh, the, it's got the Library of America is its origin point. And
Okay,
it means that our book
Thaddeus,
will show up
take a
everywhere.
minute and tell us exactly what the Library of America is.
The Library of America appears to be a publicly funded organization that gathers America's best writers, whoever they are. Ben Franklin, uh, James Baldwin, Octavia Butler. If you've ever written anything, Stephen King, if you've ever written anything in America that is uniquely American, that talks about America in some way that is special to them,
Mhm.
the Library of America wants to put it in a book. And the more of your work that you've written, the more likely it is you're going to get a compilation. But they decided this year was they want to get 20 Black writers who are Afrofuturists or Black speculative fiction writers and put them together in this book called The Black Fantastic. And it's 20 Afrofuturistic stories. And the writers, the names of the writers in this are, they're names to conjure by. Nalo Hopkinson, myself. I don't think myself is a name to conjure by, but it's okay. So we've got Dwalu Anderson, we've got Violet Allen, we've got Fenderson Clark, N.K. Jemison, and a whole bunch of Tara Campbell, I know, Victor Laval, I know, Maurice Broaddus, I know. So these are the names of people to conjure by. These are great writers. And I'm sure they're going to have other entries in the Library of America because the Library of America wants the best. And some of these people are the best at what they do.
You're
And
one of
Jemison will
them.
surely get a book here.
Well, I can't think of a better way to close it out than to say congratulations on that. And thank you again, Tonja and Cliff. I'm expecting you. This is you got some big shoes to fill coming in next week after this show. So,
He'll be fine. He's had lots of practice. Thank you so
oh,
much for coming, Tanja. I appreciate
Thank
it. I know
you
it's a
for
favor to
having me.
me, but I appreciate it.